Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today for our first look webinar introducing the brand new Redline Takeoff. I'm Holly Gibson, Senior Product Specialist here at UDA Technologies, joined by my colleague Jordan Davis.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Also one of our Senior Product Specialists here, and we're really excited to take you through the brand new Redline Takeoff product in ConstructionOnline. This is your way to get easy, accurate takeoffs right in the cloud, right as part of your ConstructionOnline system or as a standalone offering. And it really allows you to say goodbye to the hassle and inconvenience of your paper plans, maybe a takeoff system that's only available as a desktop software. For the first time now, you have a fully integrated web-based takeoff so that you can get accurate dimensions and quantities from your plan sets and then jump in directly into your estimating and project management all in one system. In today's workshop, we're going to go through how to create takeoffs for different measurements. So using things like square footage, perimeter, volume, counts, and more, of course. We're going to talk about the best way to organize your takeoffs with different groupings and layers so that you can really keep things organized as you're going through your plans. We'll look at some of the reports that you can do once you've gone onto your plans and completed your measurements. And Jordan and I are also really excited to talk to you about really the future of Redline Takeoff and some of the things that not only can you do with Redline Takeoff today, but what we plan to do with Redline Takeoff in the next couple of months and really beyond.
Yeah, that's right. This is a really ambitious undertaking for us, Holly. You know, we've had an industry-leading plan management and markup system in Redline Plan Room for years at this point, and it's something that we've been very proud of. We thought that it was a really strong differentiator between our ConstructionOnline management platform and really everything else out there, but Takeoff is really taking this to a completely different level. I'm excited to show everyone today what we are going to be able to do in Takeoff today and really where we're headed as a company. Now, joining us today is Sydney Dorsey. She will be answering questions. It looks like some people are already chiming into the questions panel. If this is the first webinar that you've joined with us here at UDA Technologies before, take a look at the Go To Webinar panel where you'll see there's a space for questions. Some of you have found your way there already, but hopefully we'll see everyone at least let us know who you are, what role you serve at your company, and really what you're excited or hoping that Takeoff can do for you. Sydney is going to be flagging some questions for us to answer along the way and answering others that make sense. We would love to hear from you, so go ahead and let us know really what you're most excited about inside of our new Takeoff tool we're going to be showing today.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing your questions come through. Now, if you are new to our webinars or new to UDA Technologies, a little bit of background information on our company might be helpful. You know, as Jordan had mentioned, we've really offered an industry-leading plan management platform for the last couple of years. This is actually our 20th year in business as a company, so we've actually been providing software technology to the construction industry for the last 20 years. We're industry leaders in estimating, really known for a fantastic estimating platform. We want you to be able to, create those accurate estimates. Project management, again, a platform with over 750,000 of you and your peers really using the ConstructionOnline platform. But one of the things that we haven't been able to offer up to this point is a way to do those takeoffs. And where we really see the future going is being able to offer you an all-in-one system so that you can have everything under one roof, really backed by the expertise and support of the team here at UDA. So with that, without further ado, I guess we'll go ahead and jump in and take a look at the brand new Redline Takeoff. So we'll start by just logging into ConstructionOnline. Now, again, if you're new to ConstructionOnline, you'll notice here on my screen that we have all sorts of tools available for you to really do a fantastic job managing your project. So ConstructionOnline is going to provide a place for you to do things like file and document management, task management and project tracking, scheduling and project planning, estimating, and really you name it, you've got a complete system here. And now you'll notice there is a brand new tab within your ConstructionOnline projects called Takeoff. So we'll go ahead and jump right in.
Now, when you first land on the Takeoff page, if you haven't loaded any plans in yet, it's incredibly easy. All you have to do is click Add New, and there's a really helpful step-by-step guide that shows you how to upload the plans. The system will actually scan for the page numbers for you, which will be really useful in, one, organizing your plan set here in Takeoff, but also for the future when you are actually moving into Redline Plan Room for actually managing the job, but it's a little outside of the scope of today's talk. Now, when you're inside the Takeoff interface here, what you'll see when you first load in a new set of plans is that, well, there's a couple of trackers built into the platform, but there's really nothing inside of any of our drawing set when it comes to Takeoff. But as we work through the webinar today, we'll start to see these different icons light up, which is going to give us some interesting spot checks or some interesting information, especially helpful for project administrators or company admins who might want to just see the progress on their projects. They can quickly peek in without having to open each and every drawing.
That's right. And just like with the Redline Plan Room, you do have the ability to do things like filter by different tags. We're working with a relatively small plan set today to keep this workshop concise and give us a couple of good drawings to work off of. But I know in many cases you guys have plan sets that might be, a couple of hundred sheets as part of a single set. And so it's nice to be able to come in and do some filtering. You can go down and filter by different version sets or tags. Now, what you will also start to see here is one of the very first benefits of having Takeoff built into your overall plan room, which is that you don't have to load them into two different places. Mm-hmm. So what we're seeing here in our Takeoff area is really the exact same plan set that we already loaded into our Redline plan room when we first set up the project. Now the plan room here is going to give us and our team members the ability to, of course, view the plans and do things like markups, annotations, tie in with the project management side of the software. But the Takeoff section is really where it's designed specifically to give you a different tool set when you open up these sheets, focused solely on measuring and dimensioning out these plans. Now, we have everything loaded in. Really, our next step, if we're looking at, how are we going to get started with building a Takeoff, you're really just going to choose a plan that you want to work with, click on that, and it's going to open up in a new tab for you. Now, I've got a couple open here because I want to show you guys really the getting started process and just how easy it is. One of the things that people have loved so much about the ConstructionOnline and Redline platforms overall is just how easy it is to work with and use. And so we've really tried to bring that same ease of use to the Takeoff system as well.
Yeah, and getting started, it's really clear what you'll need to do. The first step in getting accurate measurements on the plans is to actually set the calibration for the plans themselves. Now, we would recommend, or what I've been told in the past, is that when you're actually setting the calibration for a drawing, it's pretty simple. You just click this button on the right to set the calibration. You'll see the interface shift to give you the calibrator tool, which gives you a nice crosshair so you can start to align. Of course, you might need to do a little bit of fine-tuning to make sure that you have very, very accurate pinpoint precision on the drawing itself. This should be pretty common sense by now for those of you who have worked inside of Takeoff systems before, but you can see here in the drawing what we really want to do is you want to find the longest contiguous or longest continuous line to set the calibration. This helps to avoid any errors and variation and just to make sure that you're getting the most accurate calibration on the document as possible.
Now, a couple of things that are helpful also when you're setting the calibration. Notice that you can go ahead and enter when you draw that scale line feet and inches, or if you're working with metric measurements, you'll have some different options here. You can also go ahead and adjust the stroke width on the calibrator tool itself. So usually here what you'll want to do is go ahead and zoom in a little bit and then make sure that you have the line set to be a bit finer. So we've gone down pretty fine on this line, which just really allows us to get things lined up with as much accuracy as possible. So now that we've done that, we're really ready to go ahead and begin measuring. Now, starting a new Takeoff is really just as easy as clicking the new Takeoff button here. You can see that I've already got one set up for concrete. So this is my detached garage with looks like an apartment over the top. So pretty simple things that we might want to start measuring if we wanted to just get an overall maybe square footage or area of this apartment over the garage, kind of as a starting point. Maybe we just need to know an overall heated square footage or something like that. You would just hit this new takeoff. We're going to give the takeoff a name, so I'm just going to call this total area for detached apartment. We'll just say apartment. Measurement type. So the next thing you're going to do is just choose what type of tool that we want to work with. So we'll just do this as an area. You can give it a different color if you'd like here. And depending on the tool that you select, you may have a height option available. For area, we don't need that, but for something like volume, you are going to be prompted to go ahead and enter the height here. So in this case, we can just click Start Measuring, and then choose which tool we want to use from our area tool set. Now it's going to auto select for you the very first tool, which is going to allow us to just draw a rectangle or square shape. You can also do things like circles or ellipses, a polygon, which allows you to trace through different points, as well as a freehand area where you can just freehand a space that you want to capture the area in. I'm going to just stay with our rectangle for the time being. And we'll just line up where do we want to measure. Slide our mouse over the sheet, and you'll notice that immediately we do go ahead and get that measurement here. And then we can also give the individual measurement a name if we like as well.
Yeah, that's right. And so kind of digging into some things that we're going to be touching on as kind of organization concepts in a few minutes. What we just did was we defined a measurement, a new takeoff, and we named it total area for the apartment. And then we also created a new shape or a new area, which we had an option to name as well. So you can start to see you're starting to get a few different options for organization or hierarchy just within the first few steps. This is going to be very useful when you're planning ahead for things like exporting out to the reports or exporting into the estimating platforms that we offer as well. Now, in this case, we decided to just leave this first measurement area named as rectangle. It's not too critical to really think ahead through this information at this point. But as we start to move into our next plan set, you're going to see kind of how it makes more sense to organize or start to group together different measurements, different takeoffs into what we're calling dimension groups.
So for something where we want to do really a complete takeoff, there are going to be a lot of things that you want to measure. It's really going to be helpful to organize that information in some way. So, if we go back to this tab, if we're doing something really quick, like just some general square footage measurements, maybe we're going to do a couple of linear measurements, and that's all we need to do here, kind of based on what we're doing for this project. You might want to do just a couple of quick takeoffs, and you'll have that information ready to export out. On this sheet, we've really gone ahead and set up some dimension groups. And so this is just a way of organizing the takeoffs and measurements that we'll be taking as we go through today. Now, what I've chosen to do and what I'd really recommend doing just to make it, again, in terms of that ease of use, is that often you really want to go ahead and set these dimension groups up the same way that you might categories on an estimate. There'll be different things that we want it to estimate for. And so it's nice to come through and maybe have a group for foundation, a group for our interior trim, a group for our floor coverings, a group for our electrical, for our plumbing. So whatever it is that you're going to need to account for here, this is how I like to organize my estimates. And so this is how I've chosen to organize my takeoff here as well. This is just going to keep me on track and keep like measurements grouped together, which is really nice when you export it out, because this is also what you're going to get with the export is a nice organized listing of all your measurements within the foundation category, within your windows and doors, etc. Now, we talked a little bit about the different types of measurements that you can do. So we looked at just kind of a really quick area. Another place where we might do, some perhaps big picture measurements. If we look at a foundation, maybe we just want to measure Maybe we just want to measure the space that we'll need for the foundation, but with this, we need it to be a little bit more than an area, so this is where you might use a volume tool. So if we click into our foundation category here, looks like we have a basement going on, so maybe we'll just call this concrete. You can, again, give it a color, so maybe we want our concrete takeoff to be green. That's okay. We'll go ahead and choose a volume measurement, and maybe we'll do a height of 2.5 feet or something like that. So of course, really this is always going to vary from plan to plan and spec to spec on the projects that you're working on, but you have the flexibility to set this up in whatever way makes sense to you. So we can certainly just hit start measuring here. Again, we're going to have tools available to us based on what we've selected, and then you'll be able to just again trace over. Notice that this is going to give us a different calculation. Instead of square footage, you will here start to get cubic feet instead of square feet, so you're getting a different type of measurement happening here.
Yeah, what's really interesting though about this, Holly, is that in addition to the primary measurement for this takeoff being the volume, the system is also keeping track of the perimeter and the area of the measurement shape as well, which could come in handy if you wanted to kind of have this information available. It's going to show up on the exports. But this is especially effective in terms of defining the primary measurement for this takeoff, so that when you're ready to import this in the future, it can pull directly in the exact quantity or the right measurement into your estimate.
That's exactly right. Now, if we go back and look at some of our other groupings, here we've done a volume measurement for our foundation. Maybe we want to start measuring out some more things. Now, one thing that'll start to happen pretty quickly as you're going through and measuring, especially things like area and volume, is that you'll start needing to measure over the same places for different purposes. Now, one thing that's important to note is, in this case, for example, we have measured for volume, so that's the primary unit that we're going to be using here. But we do still capture the other the other data points as well. So things like area, perimeter, that information is already captured in there if you need to reference it. It's just not going to be your primary point of export here. Now, one thing that you can also do with the takeoff is create layers. So we've been working on our interior layer here, but if we want to switch to, say, a layer for doors and windows, or maybe we want to create a layer for floor covering. So we'll go ahead and measure out our floor coverings, and if we want to create a layer for that, you'll just go ahead and create that. And with your layers, you're also able to turn those on and off. So I can hide the layers that I'm not using and really reuse this same sheet and set and take off set all in one place, but still be able to reduce some of the visual clutter that might start to happen when you do a lot of measurements. So we'll go into our floor covering here and really just start measuring this out using some of the different options with the area tool. So it looks like when we look at our plans here that we have some areas that will be tile, some that will be wood, some that are going to be carpeted. So I'm going to go ahead and just organize a few takeoffs based on that. So we'll start with our tile. And I'm going to make this a different color. We'll make this one a nice purple here. And we'll start measuring that out. So if we're looking at where are we going to need tile, so it looks like here on the first floor we're going to need that in our mudroom, so we can measure that out here. So maybe for this type of shape I just want to use a normal rectangle, so we've got that. And I'll probably go ahead and label this here with the room, since we're going to need to add multiple rooms here. Now I've added that room, and one thing that you can do is now add additional measurements. In this case, to get my total for a tile, I'm going to need to measure out several different places on the plan. So I'm just going to choose from my options here to add more measurements. And this is going to give me the ability to come in, and maybe for the powder room I need to trace that out a little bit. So we'll use a different tool. We'll pretend that that's part of our powder room there. So perhaps we've got a different little shape going. And then when you're done, you just double click to end the measurement and again, give this a room. So we'll call this powder room. And go ahead and close. And so now what you'll start to see is that the measurements that we're doing for our tile floor covering are going to start to add up. So we have our mudroom and powder room on the first floor. If we head on over to the second floor, we'll see that we actually need to do that in a couple of additional bathrooms. So we'll just keep going. Adding measurements to this takeoff until we have really finished all the sections for this tile. So we'll call this master bath. We have a laundry room to do here. And you would just keep going really with this until you had added all the measurements you needed to this particular takeoff.
Now, Holly, while we're working through this, someone had asked a question about kind of rearranging the way that they're grouping both the dimension groups and also the takeoffs within the dimension groups. They said that they typically do their takeoffs per room. And I think that's actually the beauty of the flexibility of the system is that you can name the dimension groups however you would like. You can name the takeoff groups however you would like. With that in mind, as you're thinking ahead to how that might flow through into your estimates or into your reports, however you have the items named, as long as you're consistent with the labeling and it makes sense to you and your team, yeah, absolutely. You're not locked into measuring based on a certain set of division codes or something like that. Whatever makes sense to your team or really to whoever's using the tool. As long as it's something that does make sense for everyone on the team and can translate nicely into the reports, there's really, other than that, there's no limits. It's up to you to define these items. Now, something to note here, once you've actually made the measurement here, if you wanted to fine-tune this a bit, just like with the calibrator tool, you can grab the anchor points of any of these polygons and shift them just a bit, just to make sure that you're getting the most precise measurements that you would need. Now, for our demonstration purposes today, it doesn't have to be exact, but we know that you out there who are going to be using this tool very heavily, who are going to be power users, this is going to be critical for you to make sure that you're getting accurate measurements on your plans.
Yeah, that's right. And it's nice to be able to see that you are, again, it's so easy to use if you do, make a little mistake or you click somewhere you didn't mean to, you can always come back and fine tune that. So again, it's really friendly to use, or maybe you want to do a rough and then zoom in a little bit further and continue fine tuning there. So you can really get very precise with it here. So we'll go ahead and close that. And you'll notice now that I've really completed the takeoff for my tile pretty quickly, just doing some basic area measurements throughout. We would probably come back here in our floor covering if you were organizing it this way and do maybe some additional takeoffs for hardwood. So we might do that in a different color. And that might be an area tool as well. Here we're just going to go in and trace this out on the first floor pretty quickly. And we'll go ahead and cover our stairs there as well. So now we have, this, we'll just go ahead and call this first floor. Close that, and now within our floor covering we have a new takeoff for hardwood. We can see the square footage that we need, and then we would just repeat the process as well for the carpeted areas. Again, like Jordan mentioned, or like our you guys out there asking, you can really organize this however it makes sense to you. This is probably how I would organize it, but really however you normally like to estimate is how you probably will want to organize the information here.
Yeah, just remember these titles here for tile and hardwood, those aren't predefined. So you can change these to read whatever you would like. So if the organization makes sense to you to rename This grouping up here, it's from floor covering to, let's say, dining room, right? And then you wanted to go through and measure out the areas inside of the dining room. Perfect, you can do that. If you wanted to measure by specific item codes, for instance, or major division breakdowns, instead of naming it floor covering, right? Maybe you wanted to go with specific item coding structure. You could do that as well. It's very flexible. There's not one way of doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And the output you get is based on really just how you choose to set it up. Now, if we take a look at some of the other tools that are available, maybe we now want to jump over to a different layer. So we've got our, maybe we've got our floor covering done, and we want to do doors and windows. I can actually just jump into that layer here. We'll turn that on, turn that off. And so now I'm really left with a blank slate. Now my floor covering takeoff's still there and the measurements are still there. I'm just really getting that visual out of the way so I can come in and maybe do some counts for my doors and windows here. So if we head into that grouping, we may want to do, say like interior doors. Exterior doors and different types of windows that we may be using. Now the plan set that we're using here actually goes ahead and lists out a door and window schedule on this particular document, but if it didn't, or if we wanted to go back and double check, this would really be the way to do it. In that case, we're just going to choose the count type. We'll call this interior hinged doors, and again start measuring. This is going to activate the count tool for us. And so really what we're looking to do is you would just start clicking here to indicate doors. Now, you'll notice it's making those dots. You can resize. So if you need for these to be, a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, kind of depending on what you're doing there, we'll say that we'll have a door here. That looks like more of an open doorway, so we'll go in and say we have door here and here as well. And then when we're done, we'll just go ahead and select finish count, and we can just call this, again, you don't necessarily always have to give it a name at this level. I like to go ahead and do so.
Now, it makes sense if you were thinking about this in terms of a structure. If you wanted to name the count that you just made as a specific product or line item or something like that, it would make a lot of sense to put that name directly into that field once you were finished counting as well. Now, you'll also notice that when you are counting, you have the ability, again, to resize. So if I wanted to make those, a little bit bigger, I could. But you can also do something called resume the count. So let's just say that you need to stop or pause for a moment, move the plan around a little bit. You can do that and then just go ahead and hit resume. And that's going to allow you to continue adding to that same particular count. So in this case, for my interior doors, we'll go ahead and finish that off and close it. Here, maybe we want to do a new takeoff for, exterior doors. Maybe we want to do one for our closet doors. I mean, really, you name it, anything that you might want to count out like this. This is really how you would do that. So we'll call this exterior, and maybe we've got some going here. We'll finish that. Oops. Move things over. It looks like I did an area there by accident. So if you accidentally do that, you can just delete it really quickly. So again, everything is super, super easy to use. So we would go here, and we would maybe go here and here. And really you just keep going.
Now, other places where the count tools are especially useful is if we're counting something like maybe electrical outlets, any sort of fixtures, electrical fixtures, light switches. On the plumbing side, things like drains or fixtures there. So all sorts of ways that you can use the actual count tool anytime you need to go stamp out and count a quantity of something. That's really how you would want to do it here.
And of course, we're thinking in terms of a long-term goal here. Instead of having to go through and count everything by hand or on pen and paper, and then having to take that and translate that into some type of manual data entry into some type of system like our estimating platform, the longer term goal is going to be that you take the counts, you take the areas, you take all of these dimensions that you're putting together inside of the takeoffs, and then you're pulling those into the corresponding correct places inside of your estimates moving forward.
That's right. Now, we've looked at volume measurements, we've looked at counts and areas. We also want to look at some linear measurements as well. So usually when we're measuring or exporting those out, you'll have different types of linear measurements. So I've created an interior trim category here just to go through some of the basics of what you can do here. Now, it could be that we wanted to do something like maybe baseboards. And so we can go ahead and just the same as everywhere else, we'll go ahead and give that a color. And then we'll choose, maybe for this one, we'll choose the perimeter. So I'm going to do this just to show you what the perimeter tool does. Just gives us a really quick way to do a linear measurement on a large space effectively. So there are other linear tools you can use like a ruler or line segments, but this is really intended for when we need to do a pretty large space. So we'll go ahead and just hit start measuring. And I'm actually going to make my line here a little bit thicker just so we can see that a little bit better. With the perimeter tool, you do have different shapes to choose from or things like that. So we might just do again just an easy little rectangle there. And that's going to give us the perimeter here. So we might call this baseboards, or we might want to call it baseboards on a certain type of wall or something like that. If we need to do some other types of linear measurements, let's see. We'll call this upstairs baseboards. Maybe we need to keep going, but just a different type of trim. We'll also do this green. But instead of perimeter, maybe we want to do just something a little bit more fine-tuned on the linear measurement side. So we'll go ahead and select that, hit start measuring. Now we have a different tool set available to us. So this would be anything from just an area rectangle to more of a trace or polygon, line segments, or a ruler where we only want to measure one straight line. So your ruler is going to allow you to make one line that you're measuring. Your segment tool is going to allow you to make multiple lines over and over again. So if we want to do segments, we would just go from point to point here, and then we'll do it again here. And much like the count, you effectively just keep going until you have completed out all the segments that you want to measure.
And then to finish, all you would need to do is just double click on a finishing point, and that essentially ends the segment at that point. You could also click the finish segment button at the top, but for those of you looking for a little bit of extra speed, you can just double click in place and it will finish for you. You can continue adding to that same linear measurement using different tools if you would like, just to continue moving through. This looks like it's so Holly, you selected the continuous segment instead of the broken segment tool. Really useful function, that way you can keep going if it makes sense to keep drawing through.
Yes. And it is also helpful to note as we're going through that when you're using the polygon tools, whether it's the continuous linear measurements or the area. If you hold down the shift key while you're doing that, you notice I did a little bit nicer job on this one, keeping my edges square. So holding down the shift key will make sure that you are creating those sharp squares, as opposed to having to just drill in and rely on your own precision. Yeah, which it's nice to have technology helping us out there a little bit as well. So we'll maybe call this bedroom trim. And again, we can just keep adding measurements here if I want to add using different tools, or if it's helpful to use different tools in different places. If we want to do just kind of a straight line, maybe we will just start here and drag across. You'll be able to see that as well. So all of this will just continue to add up into that takeoff, and it's all going to be based on, in this case, your linear feet. Now, you can see how easy it is, and really to complete your takeoff, you would just keep going, really. You divide out the sections that you want to measure or dimension out. You drill into those and start creating takeoffs, and then really, your next step is going to be to, of course, know that these are always here available in the cloud anytime you need to get to them to come back and reference or look at. Again, going back and turning those layers on and off if we wanted to see everything at one time. This is how you would do that. But really our next step is usually going to be, well, so then how do I get the data out? What kind of exports or reports do we want to do? And so that is going to be really our next step. Now for doing that, you have some options here that are going to allow you to either print, which is a PDF report, or do a quick export out to Excel. So I've got one of those just to give you an idea of what the output looks like. And you guys can see based on how this is set up that really it's going to give you headings for those groups, which again function like categories typically on an estimate. And then you're going to see your takeoffs listed underneath there with their total measurement and then the unit that we're using. So we've got our cubic feet here, our square footage for any of the areas that we've done, each for any of these counts, so that you can see what you've got there. So really it just totals everything up for you, puts it together in a nice report or output, so that you can now take this and work with it further, use this as a basis for your estimate. Now it looks like we've got, and pardon the pause, it looks like we've got a lot of great questions coming in. So I know Jordan and I are going to take just a moment to review some of those. Sydney's done a great job trying to answer what everyone is asking, and flag some of those for us to come back to. While we're reading through some of those questions, I wanted to also take a few moments to talk a little bit about the future of Redline Takeoff. So we're looking today at Redline Takeoff and the measuring that you can do, and really the takeoffs that you can create. But we really do have an awesome vision for what the next couple of steps will be for Takeoff. And I know some of you guys have already asked some of those questions. I think the most common question I'm seeing here is, how can I get it, or is this available to me? So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the session today. Next most common question is, does this go directly into my ConstructionSuite or ConstructionOnline estimating? And so the answer to that is it definitely will. As of today, it doesn't, so you don't have a direct integration yet. You would just export that out and be able to use those imports the way you would with other Takeoff tools that you might have used in the past, or a spreadsheet that you have used for creating dimensions. But really the difference maker here with the UDA Redline Takeoff is that because we do have not only this fantastic Takeoff platform, but ConstructionSuite on cost estimating, as well as ConstructionOnline on cost estimating, we really have the ability on our team here to develop a system where you will be able to do your Takeoff, and those numbers will be able to import directly into your estimates. No exporting needed, no importing needed. And so that's really what our team is hard at work implementing that right now, and that will really be one of the next enhancements or changes that you see to the Takeoff and estimating platforms that we offer, is the ability to take what we're doing here in Takeoff and have that go ahead and go directly into the dimension set for your estimates, and give you some options for setting up some formulas and counting your material quantities and things like that. So that's really a next step for us. Other things that we have planned for the Takeoff platform and our estimating platform would be a database of items. I know a couple of you guys have asked about that. What about having a collection of items or parts that you can work with? So that's something that we have in the works for ConstructionOnline as well. We're also planning to add some enhancements to the Takeoff tool, things like templates that you could go ahead and set up so that if you really like to do it this way, you could go ahead and predefine what your groups or takeoffs would be. So planning to add some template capabilities as well as different types of measuring tools for things like a specific tool for wall measurements, for example, so you don't have to go back and add the height each time when you're measuring out walls, and some really nice like roof pitch options for being able to do roofing takeoff. So a lot of things that our Takeoff product team is working on to enhance the tools that are already available to you here. And then of course our estimating product teams are really working on pulling this data directly into the estimates. So just kind of an idea of what the future holds and what we see as really the future of being able to do takeoff and estimating in one integrated system, as opposed to those being really two separate and then moving directly into your project management and project planning.
Mm-hmm. And I will say this, Holly, our product teams have been iterating incredibly fast and incredibly well inside of Takeoff. I mean, we were just demoing what felt like a tech demo in some regards at the International Builders Show, and really was we were attracting a lot of attention. And in between then and now, I mean, I've already seen probably 3 or 4 new tools come online in that time inside of the plan itself, or inside of Takeoff itself. The reporting system has come quite a long way since then as well. Before it was you were only allowed to do the Excel output and maybe a simplified PDF output, but those have been cleaned up very nicely. And so we have a lot of really exciting things planned for Takeoff, and we're feeling great about the interface and the way that it works now, and we're going to keep layering on top of that with a focus on user experience and making it easier to use than any of the other platforms out there, while still retaining a lot of the power that you would expect in this type of software.
So many great questions coming in. So I think a couple of the questions that I'm seeing here come back to some of the structural things that we've talked about. So a couple of people have asked questions about maybe kind of back to the grouping by room, or how to do mixed measurements within a single grouping. So you can kind of think of the hierarchy where we create a group. So in this case, let's go ahead and just create a group for maybe for our basement family room. So we'll call it basement family room. So if we created the grouping this way, then once you come into this group, now you can add as many different takeoffs really as you need to. Now each takeoff can be a different type of measurement. So once you create a takeoff group, once you create the takeoff here, if we select area, everything in this particular grouping will need to be area so we can correctly calculate the total for you. But within this group of basement family rooms, you could have all 5 different types of measurements mixed, and you probably would depending on what you needed to do. So like maybe our first measurement is going to be trim or something like that, so we would do a linear measurement here. So you would just, come in and be able to perhaps trace that out for this particular room. So let's say that this is what we're doing. We'll just double click on that. So we'll call this trim. Now, if we needed to add more linear measurements, we would do that here. We would just add more to the trim section. But if we need to add more to the room, we would just go ahead and add a new takeoff for this room, and maybe we're going to call this carpet or something like that. Choose a different color, and we'll use our area tool now, so we can say let's start measuring that out, and we'll just do a quick trace on that as well. So you can really, again, it really comes back to the flexibility that you have, available here to organize things in whatever way makes sense for you and your team. But it's super easy to create those groupings. It's fast to label them, fast to start creating them. And you really have ultimate flexibility here.
Yeah, so I think this is really addressing a question that had come in about, well, can the dimension group says only have one type of measurement? Not quite. The takeoffs themselves for trim or carpet, those have one measurement type, but you can start to group those together into a grouping, which is going to start giving you all sorts of different measurements that you can then take and use in other places later on as well.
Yeah, so we can just keep mixing here now. It looks like we only have a window here, but we'll pretend like we have more. So I'll put a few more dots on here.
Careful, someone's going to be paying for that, Holly.
That's what change orders are for, right? So we'll finish that out, and now we have windows. So we can really just keep going and mix that up as much as you like. I have another great question coming in about, when we have assemblies, so we won't have to keep defining each item. So yeah, that's definitely part of the 2020 roadmap and the next set of enhancements that you'll start to see. Really the step one there would be to have that database of items. Another step beyond that would be able to group those items into different assemblies. So those are all things that you'll continue to see added both to the Takeoff platform as well as our on-cost estimating platform online. Let's see. So many questions as well. So let me just make sure that we're not skipping anything here. Someone had a question, and I love this because it does give me a chance to talk about some of that wall measuring. Someone wanted to know, do we, for things like interior walls, what about what about that, or how can you differentiate between different wall types? And so really our plan is to allow you to have a measuring tool specific for walls so that you'll be able to define a height, and then to also be able to define that as a single or two-sided wall. So for something that's interior, like a partition might be a two-sided, whereas something that's really more on the edge is going to be a single-sided. So we do plan to give you options to address both of those. Let's see. Looks like a lot of popularity for the item tie-in, so that'll be something for sure that we're excited to offer. So, I guess we'll save the last question here. And again, for any of you guys where I'm seeing some pretty specific questions as well, or for some of you that are already really starting to work with the Takeoff a little bit. As always, Jordan and I are available and love to work with you guys one-on-one as well. So if there are questions really specific to a set of plans that you have or something that you'd like to go over with us individually in a little bit more detail, then please always do feel free to give us a call, 800-700-8321, or shoot us over an email. We'll always be happy to set up that type of meeting with you. Kind of on to our most popular question is really how can we get Takeoff? So the Takeoff platform is available as an add-on to anyone who has a subscription to ConstructionOnline, ConstructionSuite, or our Redline plan room. So if you have one or any combination of those, you can go ahead and add Takeoff. If you're interested in just purchasing the Takeoff platform as a standalone, we have options for you there as well. So really, it's available if anyone is looking to get started with a fantastic web-based platform that's going to be easy to use. Redline Takeoff is definitely the way to go, and that is available. Now, it looks like some of you guys have noticed that, you see the tab in your ConstructionOnline, but it's not yet activated. If you'd like to add that onto your account, all you have to do is just give us a call. We can talk to you about adding that on. One thing that's great about Takeoff as well is that it is added or purchased per user. So we know that often, there may be a team of 15 or 25 or 250 people using ConstructionOnline, and you don't need to necessarily have Takeoff for everyone. You might, but you might not, and so you can really choose which users are going to have access to these Takeoff tools. So again, just give us a call. We'll take a look at your account together and make sure to get you set up.
Okay, I did see one question. I did want to point this out. Someone said that they arrived late, but they were looking for a way to shift the measurements from or to metric. We have a lot of clients all over the world, and this is incredibly important. This is how you prevent disasters from occurring, both minor and major. Make sure that your measurements are set to your corner of the world's measuring standard. You can change that through the settings menu here at the top, and you can change the measurements to metric. You'll also have that option when you're setting the calibration tool. Inside of when you're first setting the calibrator, there's an option to switch from imperial to metric, or vice versa, depending on where you're working or who you're working with. But other than that, I think that about does it in terms of questions, Holly.
I think so, but again, want to just take a moment here at the end to thank all of you again for taking some time out of your day and joining us for our Redline Takeoff workshop. We will look forward to continuing to hear your feedback on that, and again, are happy to help. As always, today's workshop has been recorded and will be available for you on our events page at udatechnologies.com/events. There you can also see the schedule of upcoming workshops. We have great sessions planned in the coming weeks for things like mobile time tracking and logging for your field teams, integrating with QuickBooks. So some really great things coming up, looking at lead tracking in CRM, so a variety of topics. So make sure that you check out that events page and join us for future sessions. We'd love to see you there. For today, though, again, we thank you for your time. So excited to have you join us, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thanks again, everyone, and take care.